to the Greg Schreffler Show, where we talk about anything and everything that has God in it. Why? Because we gotta. Come on, man. It's encoded into our DNA. Did you know that? Huh? In fact, I was listening to my friend. He said the other day, he was talking about these investigators that come up on a horrific, this is a true story. These investigators, they come up on a horrific, disgusting, mutilated scene of a body, cut up, carved up, okay? And what did the people say? What did they say? What is the first words out of their mouths? Oh my Buddha? Oh my Krishna? Oh my Allah? No, it's oh my God. It's oh my God. That's what I mean when I say we're hardwired. I'm sorry, I got really sidetracked there, but it's the truth. Let's try to get back on course here. Hope you like the intro music. It's called Heavy Doom Dark Metal by Alex Koff at pixabay.com. I also hope you're enjoying the one-on-ones as much as I'm enjoying conducting them. They're just awesome. Everybody has their own life experience, and so I think there's something out there for everybody that they can connect with. Don't forget, if you can, support the show. Register at Give, Send, Go and GoFundMe. And if all you can offer right now are prayers, Give, Send, Go offers a way for you to do that. Just register with them and it'll let me know that you're praying for me. And that is really cool. All right, let's get it on. Welcome to episode 50 of the Greg Schreffler Show. And today we're interviewing another practicing Christian. Now, you may ask yourself, why do we do these interviews? Why do they matter? Because I think they separate the real Christians from the ride-along Christians. And hopefully you've been with me where you know exactly what that means, but otherwise, you can probably figure it out. Because a lot of people today identify as being Christian. And I know saying identify as is a dangerous thing, but seriously, a lot of people kind of, whatever's popular. This has always bugged me. It bugged me in high school. It bugs me everywhere I go, where you see people just kind of glom on to whatever the latest thing is. They just, oh, that Christianity's cool. I'm a Christian, or whatever it is. Anyway, but I think only a few have actually examined what it means to be a Christian. And so these interviews help us in three different ways. Number one, they expose the difference between knowing about God versus truly knowing Him. And number two, they reveal where tradition, culture, and habit may have replaced truth. And number three, they challenge the audience, hopefully you're being challenged, to examine their own faith. And that's what these conversations are all about. So let us begin. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome former newspaper slinger, cornfield laborer, burger flipper, sous chef extraordinaire, award-winning glorified Jiffy Lube generator technician 3E0X2. You got to tell me what that is. Staff Sergeant in the Air Force, switchgear automation field service engineer team lead, senior power system engineer, and current advanced electrical services engineering manager who moonlights by repenting his sins on the side. My brother in Christ, David Gainen. Yeah! So, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting down with me, talking about life as a real Christian, and thank you for allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and answer significant questions with eternal consequence.
Absolutely.
So, what is a 30X2? What kind of a generator is that?
3E0X2.
Yeah, what is that?
It's a Power Pro technician, or Power Pro,
Oh,
power production.
wow.
So, yes, AFSC, Air Force Specialty Code.
Oh. All right, before we get into segment one, we'll be right back after one of my commercials, not one of the algorithmic selected commercials that I have no control over. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new sponsor for the show. Very exciting. Thank you very much. It's awesome. Prayers have been answered. Very good, very good. And this sponsor for limited time is going to match your gift. So if you give $100, they give $100. We got $200. So yes, please give to the show. Give generously, and remember, your gift, 100% of your gift goes to the show. There's no profiting going on here. Maybe one day in the future, but not anytime soon here. So yeah, whatever you give goes to the show for lighting, for sound, for effects. Yes, please. Thank you so much for your generous donation, and thank you to our sponsor who will match your gift. All right. Segment 1, Personal Faith Journey. What did your life look like before your relationship with Christ?
So definitely a couple words come to mind. Gluttonous, right?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely serving my own flesh and seeking, fleshly desires. And then beyond that, I mean, self-serving. I always seem to find a way that I believe I could outsmart the system, whether that be at work or in my personal life or whatever it may be, to kind of serve my own interests, my own desires, the things and the outcomes that I just kind of sought for myself. Often at we'll say the sacrifice or the detriment of others. Just putting myself first. So,
Gluttonous how?
I mean, a lot of different ways. Typical, we'll just say not eating well. Drinking too much for sure. So a lot of drinking, eating. But my big gluttony, I mean, if I'm being honest, was video games. I would give hours and hours and days and weeks of my time just to my own enjoyment, at the behest of sacrificing time with my family and those around me, and even sacrificing what could have been more experiences, especially while I was over there, stationed in Germany, to just again satisfying my own desires.
Is that PC or is that Xbox what's the other one?
PlayStation.
PlayStation, yeah.
So at the time it was PC.
Yeah.
The online aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the big lie of the world, right? Is that you can have that same community all online, and I mean it's great to have it as a tool, but when you kind of replace real life community with just online, it's empty, it's void,
Yeah.
it's not the same.
I remember when my kids were, I knew they were going to get into video games. I mean, it's just part of life. Either they were going to learn it through me or they were going to learn it through their friends. And so I would sit down and play with them, and I'd be like teaching them, okay, now, this guy's on your team, so you don't want to, I was teaching them about teamwork. I was teaching them about, hey, you guys have an objective and you're trying to accomplish it together. So that's how I inserted myself into their gaming.
And I don't look at it like it's all around a bad thing, but I think that it, just like anything,
Yeah,
it
absolutely.
can become a bad thing.
Yeah, sure. Sure. All right. Anything else with life before Christ?
The only thing I would add to that is that I think that the recognition of just how much my life was focused on me, my pride, myself, and I guess the shortcomings of what I really believe that I should have been doing for those around me. When you come to that relationship with Christ and you start to learn more through the Word about what He did for the people around Him, even as God, right?
Yeah, serving, not being served, right?
Absolutely, and it's like you don't, the clarity of just
How bad
how
you
bad it
screwed up.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
and how much I really, like, at the time you always find that way to rationalize things, right, when you're in the thick of it. And so, at the time I would rationalize all my behaviors.
Yeah.
I'd find that excuse and that reasoning.
Yeah.
It's like finally when that spotlight of truth, through God actually gets shined on it, you start to realize just how bad it was.
And you were married and in the Air Force in Germany, right?
With my first child, yes.
Yes, the first child. Okay, let's move on to the next one. It is biblical understanding and theology. How do you reconcile difficult or controversial passages in Scripture?
So for me, it's always good to just, you do everything you can to understand. I don't think, again, a lot of people want to sit there and say that there's so many contradictions in the Bible and this and that.
Mm.
And when you actually get down to it, there's not. They don't exist. And I mean, there's many, many people that can explain a lot of these things better than me. But even in the ones that challenged me, you start to wrestle with maybe this is something, but then you start to look at it, whether it's just different story, different perspective, an omission rather than a contradiction, or you start looking at the context. It's just amazing that the dots actually connect and you start to see, okay, no, this is, people attack the low hanging fruit thinking that it's
Mm.
that quick gotcha.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you find out that there's so much more. And once you have it in context and actually look at it with real logic, it's not contradicting. So there's that, and there's that piece. But I do think that there's things, and we need to be okay with that. And I think it's a pride thing that we want everything to make crystal clear sense to us, and we want
Mm.
to understand it, and we want to be able to prove it, and we want it like, in our hands, we can
Right.
touch it, feel it, right? But I rely on Isaiah 55, verse 8 and 9. I don't have that specifically written down, but the summation of that is that, God is declaring that, my thoughts are not your thoughts, right? My understanding is not your understanding, and my plans aren't necessarily your plans, right? So it's just, at the end of the day, I think it's just hard for people to put their own pride aside and realize there may be some things like even the Trinity and certain things that we understand like a general concept of, but we're not going to really fully understand that, till Christ returns and his kingdom is fulfilled. And I think we need to be, in some regards, and that line will be different for all of us, but put our pride aside and be okay with the fact that God's understanding is infinitely beyond.
Yeah.
So I think that that's hard for people because, again, we want to draw the line where things need to make sense.
Right.
And
So the faith is just absolutely necessary
it is.
to have. And like we've talked about before, the faith gap for some is wider than others. But it's a foundation that has to be accepted. And atheists and scientists or whatever don't always want to accept it. And that's fine. But if you understood everything about God, he wouldn't be much of a God, right? I mean, if
Absolutely.
our limited abilities and our finite thinking and intellect, yeah, I mean, for us to be able to, in fact, this is sometimes what I say to people when they say, well, why do good people die, or why do babies die, or I mean, whatever the catastrophe is, why did God allow that? Basically, is what I hear. And I said, man, if I could answer that, I would be equal to God. Because you think about it,
Yeah.
there's stuff we don't have an answer for, but we have to have trust and we have to have faith, because otherwise it's just kind of a lame God if we're able to know and understand him completely.
And I kind of look at it, I definitely agree with that, but I kind of look at it another way too. I think, the gap that we talked about, right? I think that when people look at the evidence, they look at it with their own already
Yeah.
preconceived bias, right? And so they keep that gap much bigger than it actually should be.
Mm-hmm.
Like if people truly looked at everything from historical, archaeological, prophecy, all the different things and the different evidences out there. I mean, even just the amazing things with the universe and
Mm-hmm.
biology and everything, it all points to God, right? But I think that you have to have that gap. I think a lot of people make it bigger than it needs to be. But I
Mm-hmm.
think you have to have that gap because, yeah, that faith is fundamental. Otherwise, if you look at it, then it's we're being almost programmed in a way. Like you have to have it like the line drawn completely so that there's really no other way that you can go.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes away kind of from that free will aspect of it of you're making this choice to have faith, right? Because if you don't have to make that choice to have faith, at least even for that, that gap, however large or small it might be, for the individual, then it's a pre-programmed ending, and that's not what God's looking for from us. He wants us. He's given us the ability to choose Him, right?
Mm-hmm.
He wants that genuine love, that genuine relationship, And so if there isn't that little gap there where you make that choice willingly by your own desire, then, it's not that genuine love and relationship that is ultimately the goal.
Yeah. Good. All right. You good with that?
I'm good.
All right. Next is daily walk and spiritual discipline. How do you stay spiritually grounded in a busy or chaotic world? Which I'm often reminded that you are chaotic. Your world is chaotic and busy.
Yeah, this one really hits home for me. And I mean, I'll definitely speak to it, but just understand that, even as I speak to this or anyone listens to me on this, like, this is something that I struggle with. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to find that balance. It's hard to not get distracted, right? Because there's so much that you feel like needs your attention,
Mm-hmm.
wants your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you have a big heart and you want to, how do you say this? It's not that you don't want to say no, but it's that you want to be there for everyone.
Hmm.
And I think that in some ways that's an impossibility. But yeah, the job is very demanding. There's a lot of things going on with the family and things as well. I guess for me, it's you have to be intentional. Like you have to. First of all, I lay out a strategy, right? I make sure that I have, I have a Bible on my desk. I have a Bible, on the nightstand. I have a Bible at my desk at home. I have a Bible in my truck. Even some of the material that I'm listening to, I try to make sure that I'm listening to it when I can. So you have to, whether it's the drive into work or 5 minutes in between a meeting,
Hmm.
you have to fight the busyness and the distraction
Mm-hmm.
with some intentional strategy and making it like if you're not prepared in that regard, if you don't have something to look at, to study, to give time, or you're not trying to make sure that you're praying or having that connection in that relationship, it's easy to just kind of get washed away like the waves on the beach, right?
Hmm.
So it's a daily battle.
Yeah, I mean it is a daily battle, and everybody's life is chaotic in their own way and busy in their own way. So you're right. You do have to. It does help to have a strategy, and it does help to have the discipline to stick to it. I know for me that I have my devotional time, and it's. I always say to God, "It's okay. This is just a time where it's just you and me in this few minutes or whatever it is, but it's not over when I'm done reading my devotional or devotional book or
Sure.
journaling or Bibling. It's he goes with me. We're together at work. I'm talking. I'm praying constantly. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest I think transition that a lot of people may struggle with is understanding God goes with you when your devotions are
Yes.
over.
Yes.
And sometimes
It's
we
not
get
just a visit on Sunday.
right, and we may think that yeah, I do my devotions, and then I leave God there and I go about my business. But yeah, and it's interesting too that when the scriptures, and I say this probably in every interview because it's just so important. The scriptures are so awesome because they're for everybody wherever you're at. So if you're a brand new Christian, the scriptures are there for you and they make sense to you where you're at. And then as you become a seasoned Christian, there's more.
Oh yeah.
There's more. There's more. There's more. And so I love that how like you don't have to be at a certain level. Well, let me rephrase that. You don't have to be at a certain level intellectually to accept Jesus into your life, and nor do you have to be at a certain level physically or age wise to understand. It's all up to you. It's self driven, and once you start to taste Christ and spend time with Him and read and study, there's this thirst for more, and so you keep digging deeper, and then you might find that your focus is more on Him than it is about the distractions that happen in our life. So that yeah, that's it's definitely. I mean, it's definitely hard for everybody because there's always a bent away from Him. There's this bent to be not Christian. There's this bent to not serve Him. There's a bent to serve self.
world definitely pulls the opposite direction
Mm-hmm.
in any way that it can. And I think that it's also so like there's the personal relationship,
Mm-hmm.
but even like getting involved in like a Bible study, bringing a part of that habit and that strategy, a sense of community where you're
Mm-hmm.
discussing the word together and having conversation. Because, I mean, even in our Bible study, right, the perspectives and the experience, the testimony
Mm-hmm.
that comes as a part of that is it's so first of
Iron
all
sharpens iron.
yeah, for sure, and it's spiritual food.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it helps keep you on track and bring you back to focusing on him.
Yeah, it's definitely relatable. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You good? All right, next is trials, doubt, and spiritual warfare. So, how do you resist temptation and remain obedient?
So again, I'm not saying this is professing perfection in any way, shape, or form, but you have to have that relationship and you have to be able to give some of those burdens to the Holy Spirit. I mean, I think that kind of the same as before. Like, I think there's always like strategies and things that you just focused on Him when you know that there's the draw to focus on the other. So, like, even like with, we mentioned like the video games, right? Like, for me, because I know that that's, a burden that God put on my heart that I need to have distance there. There's, even as I like watch a video on YouTube, right? All the advertisements are all targeted towards that, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's trying. Those hooks are there.
The YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah. And so, really focusing on when I start to kind of feel that draw to the things that I know are my burdens, and whether it's prayer, whether it's listening to a Bible verse, whether it's intentional refocus on Him. It's like you dress your thoughts like you dress your clothes, right?
Hmm.
And so you have to do that. If you if you don't already have some of that in place, by the time you get to the point of actually dealing with the temptation, you might have already lost the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But anyway, the other thing that I would say to that is that reminder to be humble and not let
Mm-hmm.
my pride dictate things. And I say this because as you give a lot, there's usually accomplishments. By the grace and the blessing of God, things happen, right? And I think that it can be easy to let those accomplishments be justification to reward yourself, to open those doors to temptation.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to always remain humble, know that everything that I have, it is a blessing from God. It is a gift. It is, I am a tenant, right, of God's blessing, and I need to be using that to His glory as much as I
Right.
can.
You're a steward.
Yes. And then the big thing for me here, and this was honestly probably the absolute most key thing, is to realize that everyone has that hole within them, right? And it's usually those fleshly and worldly things that you're trying to fill that hole with, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even if you deny yourself, right, and you kind of get into that habit of saying no to those things, and you go through this, you'll find that it's all this, like often this roller coaster, right? You'll say no, you'll do really good, you drop off, you do really bad, right? And you just keep going. What I what I learned is that for me, you start to realize like there's a power vacuum. When
Mm-hmm.
you remove it and you don't put anything in its place, there's that vacuum there,
Mm-hmm.
that power vacuum. And what I realized, and why I even specifically mentioned when I have my temptation, I create the habit of listening to a Bible verse or trying to get into prayer, is because if you don't fill that void with the Spirit, it will eventually you'll get drawn back in. Eventually, the world is always pulling. The flesh
Right.
is always at war with the Spirit, and
Right.
it is always pulling. And if you leave that void there without filling it with God, then you're going to fail eventually. You're going to get pulled
Yeah.
back into it. And so that's been a big thing, is recognizing that when I do actually, when I am obedient and I do pull away and remove that thing from my life, that I have to put Spirit in its place or it will
Mm-hmm.
come back.
Yeah, I mean the secular society talks about that, where you have to have if you're going to get rid of a bad habit, you have to replace it with a good habit. You can't just get rid of the bad habit and hope that it never comes back. Like you were saying, you have to fill it with something. And I think Christ talked about or told a story about the man that had all these had his house swept clean from possession, and he didn't fill it. And then the demon went out and found, seven more demons that were worse than it, and came back in. So
Yep.
it's definitely consistent with what you're saying. You have to replace it with something. You can't leave it empty. Even the secular world says that, because it'll get something else will get in there. And then it's scriptural just to want. The more you can do this, the easier it becomes. The first few times are the difficult, like with anything, breaking the ice kind of thing. You do it a few times and it starts getting easier and easier. And that's really where we want to get to. I think the frustrating part of being Christian is just that you're tripping of yourself and you don't need to be.
And I would also add, like, you don't want to justify the mistakes, but I mean, we're human, right? And
Yeah.
we are dealing with that battle. And a part of my own struggle is, in many aspects of my life, I'm kind of a perfectionist. So then it's like, if you have that one failure, it's easy to get in that mindset. Well, it don't matter now, right? Like, I've already failed, right? Kind of like when you have that cheat meal, and then it's like, oh, well, I'm just gonna eat crappy because I already
Oh, yeah.
right. So I think that, again, recognizing that when you do fall off, it does not defeat and negate, everything. Like, get back on. Like, don't let that be like, I have to be perfect
Right.
or it don't matter.
Right.
Right? At the end of the day, the grace of Christ is there for all that you've
Yeah.
done and all that you will do. You should be seeking Him, walking with Him.
Right.
And when you take that misstep and you stumble, just, again, heel toe, take that next step. Keep going.
Yeah. Get back on the horse, get back up on the bike, keep at it. Definitely. All right. Next, living out the faith. What does it truly mean to live like Christ in today's society?
So there's a lot of different things that obviously get wrapped up into this, I think. But for me, the thing that stood out the most was Matthew 6:21. Again, I don't have it written down, but the verse is, for where your treasure is, your heart will also be, right? And so when I think of living out my faith, I think of you obviously, you're, a steward of the finances and the money and the resources, but our most significant resource that we have is our time. And I know that the world it's definitely fighting for that, but you find that where you put your time, where you put your resources, that's where your heart is. And so I believe that, living a Christ-like life is going to be, you have to you have to have service in your life. You have to be a servant with your time, with your resources, with, just yourself. That's a huge part of it for me. And then doing it not as just a matter of habit, but genuine love for the people around
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I was going to mention that when you said you have to do that, because it may start out like that, but then as you mature, it kind of moves into, I want to do that.
Yeah,
I want to do that.
yeah,
I think
for sure.
that's key. And that's just a sign of you growing spiritually, is that it goes from a have to a want to.
No, that's a very good point. Yeah, I like everything that you do in this, right? Like, it needs to be done in love. It needs to be not just a habit, but yeah, for the desire to, your relationship with Him, to glorify Him, bring overflow and abundance to those that you love. Yeah, for sure. So I have also, willing to speak truth is certainly a part of that life. And again,
What does that look like?
so I mean, I think depending on the audience, it can be a little different. But and there's another question that we kind of get into this a little bit more, so I'm not gonna steal all the thunder from that. But
Because what's ironic to me is that the people today are saying the same thing that Pilate said to Christ. What is truth?
that's a that moment, I mean, just to be able to even see that moment, like if I could time travel, right? That
Yeah.
would be that would be amazing because literally, asking the question of what is truth to the very, very source of truth and all existence
Yeah,
is
that is a cool point.
so profound.
But isn't that what people are doing today? Not only what is truth, but okay, that's your truth. But my truth, this is the new norm almost. Like, it's okay for you to have that truth, and that's your truth, but it's not my truth. It's just, yeah, just watering it down like there is only one truth. And Jesus himself said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. So, yeah, you're right. He is the one truth, but people to, I guess, keep from feeling guilty about their lifestyle, they'll say, well, that's your truth.
Yeah, so especially with some of my own family challenges right now, it's not wanting it's that the fleshly unwillingness to submit, unwillingness to recognize something else as sovereign over you,
Mm.
right? So it kind of comes back to pride. It comes back to the not wanting to be accountable. I know there's a relationship in my life right now that accountability piece, like they want to look at everything that they've done in their life is it doesn't matter,
Mm.
you know. When you look at it from a background of evolution and everything,
Hmm.
nothing really matters, right? It's all just random happenstance, survival of the fittest, whatever
Hmm.
rationale you want to put behind it, but it doesn't matter, and you can just basically whitewash, any of the hurt or harm or anything that you've done in your past, and not, be accountable for any of that. And I think that accountability, I think that not, you know, recognizing there's something sovereign over you. I think, yeah, all of that is very, very difficult for a lot of people. And that's why the way that you express truth, I think that sometimes you don't deviate. I'm not saying the truth changes, but the the shape of the message might be a little bit different in how it's presented. Um, and then,
Yeah, and that's a tough thing today because I tend to think that a lot of churches, not all churches, but a lot of churches are kind of watering down the truth to keep people from leaving their church or to keep them from feeling offended. But if you just look at how Christ lived his life, he spoke truth and he was no one could be more loving and more kind and more generous than he was.
mm-hmm,
But at the same time, you'll notice that the people that were bothered the most by it had the most to lose,
yes,
and they were the most selfish.
absolutely.
Christ didn't want all this attention. He didn't want all these accolades that people wanted to give him. He just wanted to speak truth, and that because of that, the people were giving him more attention than they were giving the Pharisees or the Sadducees or the religious leaders of that day, and they got jealous.
Absolutely. And I think that happens internally,
Hmm.
for a lot of people. And I for myself as well. I mean, that same self-service, right? That same not wanting to be accountable and, and, rationalizing myself.
So yeah, speaking the truth sometimes is going to be uncomfortable,
It is.
but God is for us.
So as a sub point to the speaking truth and living like a Christian, one last thing I wanted to add was being willing to remove the log from your own eye.
Hmm.
Because I think that it's always easier to gravitate towards correcting your environment and those in your environment than it is from really that self-reflection piece and recognizing what ownership you may have or what may need to change with you.
Definitely. If you're going to speak gospel truth, you've got to be squared away yourself before you teach or start preaching about how other people should be squared away. So absolutely. All right, you good to look at the next
Yep.
one here. How do you show your faith in your workplace and community?
So kind of, I guess, follows the first question, right? Like the more that you try to live as a person who reflects Christ, right? I think that's I mean that's like the main mission right there, right? The more that people see Christ-like behavior in you, the more that you're going to have that impact on your community. The more that it's gonna serve His plan, His glory.
What does that look like, though? Let's say, for using yourself as an example, and I'll start just to kind of get the wheels thinking. But for being in the military, it was easy to be a Christian. It was easy. Oh, you don't cuss, you don't drink, you don't smoke. Well, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So, but as you go out into the community, sometimes it's not as simple. But what's it look like in your environment? What does being Christian look like in your environment?
Servitude, like being willing to be the servant,
Mm-hmm.
not quick to anger. There's a lot of frustration in today's world. Giving grace, because I mean, we were given grace. I think that that's important, and them seeing that definitely has an impact. Caring about, like, genuine caring about the people around you, right? When you show interest in them and their success and the greater good for their eternity, right? As it hopefully ends with Christ. I think that's a part of it.
Do you eat lunch at the office, or do you go out and eat, or do you go out with your workers and eat your coworkers, or how does it work?
Yes, I try to eat. Sometimes I'll eat with the team. We'll go out to lunch. Sometimes I'm meeting with vendors or other entities, right? But and also the other leaders as well. Yeah,
So how does praying over your meal zet?
most people, it's interesting. Honestly, I mean, most of the people around me, they're not upset by it, right? And there's actually one of the vendors that I work with. It's a full prayer together
Hmm.
when we're praying over our meal. But yeah, and then even little things, right? Like I try to plant seeds. Like I haven't gotten in trouble for it yet, so I'm rocking and rolling with it. I mean, I have literally right on my desk an open Bible, right? That
Hmm.
I try to. My challenge is to, in the midst of everything with work, at least like kind of read a page a day or whatever, right? That I'm at least looking at a verse
Hmm.
every day. And but yeah, I mean, people, it's on my desk. There's other things within my office that kind of definitely point to my faith. Uh, there's ways that I kind of bring it into conversations, bring theology into conversations at work,
Hmm. That's good.
and I also try to invite people to events. We had the Super Bowl, got some people from the office to actually come to that.
Cool. Good. All right, let's look at another question here under living out your faith. How do you respond to people who challenge or reject your belief?
The main thing that I put down for this is it kind of depends on the type of rejection, because I think rejection really kind of goes into, for me at least, two categories that I deal with the most. I mean, you can have rejection by somebody who's actually open minded, right, and willing to talk and
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And how you handle that rejection could be completely different from, I mean, if they're not interested in the conversation, they're not interested in even hearing a word, like your presence
Yeah.
just
So you
bothers
could
them.
have a non-verbal rejection.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that, for when it's a rejection from someone that is at least willing to hold a conversation, um, I think there's ways that you can plant those seeds and even get them to kind of, at some point, and it may not even be you, it may not happen, in front of you. You're just trying to plant those seeds for the Holy Spirit. But you can, again, so much truth points to Christ, so much truth points to God. And there's so many different things and avenues, from the morality, from history, from, science, that you can kind of lead back into that. But
Have you ever been rejected for your belief?
in terms of, yeah, like a disassociation, I've had complete disassociation from my belief. I've had a lot of the rejections are more subtle though. It's
Yeah.
like, brush it off. I don't, just not really interested in talking about that type rejection. But yeah, and then the thing that I noted here was that when it's the outright, like, no conversation, right? The best thing that you could do in a situation like that, especially if you're in an environment where you're still going to have exposure to each other, um,
Right.
is just live that example.
Mm-hmm.
You live that example, and you still give them that grace, that love, and those things, and it
Yeah. Be consistent.
absolutely, is it Romans 12:20? If you respond to that rejection with love, right? It's
Mm.
like the heaping of coals.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'll admit to you that that's also one of my weaknesses because anger is one of the things with PTSD and So it's easy for me to get triggered that way. And it's hard for me to go and talk to somebody who's of a different political ideology. And even because I think today we've reached a point where if you don't agree with me, I hate you.
Yeah.
So it's almost like,
It's not the ideas anymore, it's the person.
yeah, it's kind of nuts. But I have to be careful. Like an alcoholic doesn't need to go into a bar. I don't need to go to a rally, or I don't need to go to some protest just for those reasons. But I think also it's good of like, and it says this in the Bible that you know the scriptures, know what it is you profess. Because people may come to you and may ask you, or they may say, "Do you ever have someone say, prove to me God exists?"
I'm basically dealing that with one of my children right now, right? Like it's
So the easiest thing that I do, because for to start that off on that question leaves you on the defensive, and I always like to turn around and say, prove to me he doesn't,
yeah,
because there have been some really public people that who have started out as atheists and went out to prove God doesn't exist and ended up finding out he does exist
yeah,
and became a Christian for it. So that's usually the simplest comeback that I have, is the proof to me he doesn't,
yeah.
because you can't, unless you're, like you said, just kind of some kind of angry person that rejects all clarity.
No, I agree. I agree.
But that yeah, so that's where
A lot
I'm
of
at.
those scholars that studied, like truly studied the Bible to prove it wrong, right? And then they end up coming to Christ. It's
That's it. Good. Anything more on that? Or we go to the next one.
I'm ready for the next one.
What does forgiveness look like in practice?
So,
So
um,
did you get that, ladies and gentlemen? Did you get that big giant sigh that came out there? Yep, that's a big one. Forgiveness is a big one.
the biggest thing for me in the moments that you're dealing with anger and emotion and frustration, right, is to remember, like, how much grace I needed. Because you want to, in that moment, just, be judge, jury, and executioner
Yeah,
for that moment.
I am the law.
But it's trying that even in those moments of, a lot of emotion and everything, staying, out of the forest and looking in, remembering all the things, all the other trees, all the other situations that you had to be forgiven for, that by extension, there is nothing you can do but also the grace that you were given as well, right?
Yeah, that's huge. I know, because it's weird how we don't really take that into consideration in the emotional moment. But, oh my God, you want me to forgive this person? This person really is a douchebag. Why do you want me? Why do you want me? And you're like, well, I forgave you. It's like, oh yeah, okay, okay, okay. So sometimes it's like that. I mean, just in all honesty, that's what it's like. I don't think there's anybody that goes, okay, I'm a happy Christian and I don't ever have problems forgiving people. But yeah, I mean, that's real.
For real. And the other note that I wrote down here is that forgiveness, there's a lot of wisdom in it, but I mean, it's for you even more than
Yeah,
often it's
that's
for
true.
them. There's a lot of discussion that's happened around that subject, but I think something for myself that I kind of come to is that forgiving someone doesn't mean that you like still remove all boundaries and all safeguards and everything, right?
Right.
Like there's still relationships and things that you've truly forgiven the situation, but you can still maintain healthy boundaries just knowing
Hmm.
whether it's, the battles and the demons and the things that that person is struggling with,
Hmm.
right? Again, as long as what you're doing, it's love that's at the root of it, that you're trying to do it in that. But yeah, I mean, forgiveness can still have boundaries. Forgiveness can still, it's not like you have to just completely erase all memory of the events. It's that you're not harboring any resentment. You're
Yeah,
not
that's
harboring
it.
any hate, any,
Hmm.
right? You've let go of all that. You've given all that negative
Right.
emotion to God, and then you can just assess the situation, even with a little bit of realism.
I like what Mr. Brown said last time I interviewed him for this. We came across this question. He says, you can forgive this person, but you don't have to have a relationship with them. And that's so true. And the key element was what you said about not harboring anger and bitterness. And just from a secular point, harboring those things causes you physical problems.
Yes. It's a burden.
So even if you remove the spiritual aspect or the scriptural aspect of forgiving, you're left with it's a real thing. Forgiveness is a real thing that if you don't do and you harbor those things, you've become physically sick and mentally, you can become mentally ill from hanging on to that. So yeah, it's
like a poison you hold on
right. Yeah, and you can kind of see that in people.
to. Absolutely. It will twist you. It'll turn you into something that you don't even want to be.
Yeah. So that's so true. How do you balance truth and love when sharing your faith? I guess those two, that kind of goes right along with the forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance truth and love in your faith?
When I'm trying to speak truth into someone's life, whatever that situation may be, something that's been useful to me is to make sure that I'm conveying that this message, it's not coming from a position of judgment, right? I have no right to judge. I mean, I can judge in a sense of recognition,
Mm-hmm.
but I have no right to judge in the sense of
Condemnation.
and this is, the outcome. That almost disarms it, at least for some,
Yeah.
because they're not, especially if you're willing to kind of throw some of your own testimony on the table.
Mm-hmm.
I don't deserve the grace that I was given, let
Mm-hmm.
alone have any right to judge you for, what you're dealing with. But using that and then opening the door to whatever truth you may need to try to draw attention to, and just be like, look, I say this out of love. I see this truth or whatever it is taking you down a path that I absolutely don't want for you. And I'm happy to talk to about it in any way, from scriptural wisdom, however it needs to be. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think that they need to know it's genuine. They need to know it's not from your own condemnation. Some of these things do carry the weight of God's condemnation if you don't change them.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like we've mentioned already, consistency,
Mm-hmm.
right? In any one of these things, if they see a life that is contrary to what you're trying to communicate, it removes all value and merit to those words
Mm-hmm.
and that message.
That one really speaks to me because I know that when I first came back from Afghanistan, I was very inconsistent. I'd pray and I'd read and I'd cry out to God, and then I'd get triggered and I'd be this monster. And so, everybody's confused
Yeah,
and it's not healthy. So, yeah, that is a valid thing to maintain consistency. That's huge. Also, counseling. Have you tried counseling?
I've been through a lot of counseling in my life.
I mean, with you and your son. 'Cause I know when Deanna and I were having troubles because of the same thing, coming back, we went to counseling. And here's the thing about counseling: you have a truth that you can share with your spouse or with your children, okay, and they blow it off. But now, if the third party comes in and says the exact same truth that you said,
Crazy.
it's accepted.
Yeah, it's amazing how that
It's
works.
accepted. It's so bizarre. And that's one of the benefits of counseling, I think, is, or a third party if you don't want to do professional counseling. But that's so huge because you're sitting there pouring out truth and they're rejecting it, but then somebody comes along and says the same thing and it's accepted. So that's something to take into consideration.
The only thing that I would say about counseling is that whoever you choose that third person to be, that choice needs to be mindful. Because
Oh yeah.
if you bring that third person in who's coming from a very secular perspective,
Mm.
that, like, it's amazing. But I mean, there's been counseling in my life that, looking back at it, I don't know that the objective was actually to save, like, the marriage. I don't know that the objective,
Yeah.
right? So
Right.
I think that choosing a counselor that's grounded in the wisdom of spirit and God
Right. Yeah,
uh,
that's definitely
is important. It's
maturity. Almost interviewing counselors or psychologists or whatever. Because I remember when we were going around shopping for counselors, oh my gosh, we came across this one, and you would say something, and then they would repeat it in a question. So I'm hearing you say, and in my triggered moment, I'm like, oh my God, seriously? We're done. we just, there was no
there's
way.
no guidance, there's no
There's
wisdom. It's
no
just
way I was going to be able to sit through this and listen to this, especially since I had a degree in psychology. There was just no way I was going to put up with this. So, so yeah, you do want to take that seriously. Finding the right counselor is important. That was my experience. All right, next. Culture, society, and truth. What are the biggest spiritual challenges that believers are facing today?
so for me, at least in what I've seen, I think distraction and noise.
But you have to define what that is.
I mean, it can be social media, it can be just the busyness of life, work. I mean, learn more about, with my own kids, with the kids in the youth group. My childhood was never that busy,
Mm.
and it is so busy now for like everything. And so that's a piece of it. I think social media is huge.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like a cesspool. It's just really, it's bad. It's bad. You mentioned consistency, and it's bad in the sense that these Christians that get on social media end up saying things that maybe they shouldn't say. You know what I mean? And so it's inconsistent with what they're professing.
Yeah.
And I've had to pull back from that because I would get triggered a lot on there. So now I just try to, if I do anything on there, try to point people to God. Try to point people. I try to keep my personal feelings, thoughts, ideologies out of it because people are so angry and they're so quick to believe a lie.
And that's the thing is that everyone, and don't get me wrong, like propaganda and manipulation, it's always been in the media to a certain extent. It's always been,
It's always been around,
yeah,
yes.
no matter what, no matter, like there's always going to be like a bias, there's always going to be an objective, but it is now to a
But it's,
point
yeah,
where
it's
it
not
is,
only in your home, it's on your child's device.
it's on the device. And not only that, I think now more than anything, like you can just blatantly say an absolute lie and no one's wanting to challenge it.
Right.
There, there's so much within social media and everything. There's so more information out there is misinformation than actual
Mm-hmm.
truth. I mean, it is like you have to, and it's hard. I mean, with discernment and prayer and everything, you have to dig for that little nugget of truth amidst the sea of the lies, right? And it's definitely that way on social media. It's that way in our media now. I mean, and I feel like at least, I mean, if you went back like 50 years or 100 years, right, there was more willingness to challenge somebody on an outright lie
Mm-hmm.
than there is now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, with your truth, my truth, all these things, nobody's even challenging the lie, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like a virus. It just keeps spreading and spreading,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the information is so quick. I mean, it's on your fingertips. That lie will hit millions, right? And within a day, I mean, within an hour even, right? Like
Right.
it's crazy how fast and the impact that comes to that. And I mean, I think even with the younger generation now that they're just inundated with this,
Mm-hmm.
I think
They
it's part
suffer. They suffer the most from it.
absolutely because I think it's like even if they have a genuine desire to to align with the truth or find the truth, it's hard, and there's so much camouflage preventing you from seeing it
Yeah.
that it's frustrating to the youth. It's like it gets to the point of like it's so hard to find it. Why bother, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just not worth it.
Yeah. That is so true. It's like the devil's playground. Playground.
Yes. So yeah, I had like half truths or the slow erosion of truth, and I think that from a societal standpoint, right? Like there's, and it's true. I mean, you look at each generation is having less kids. Each generation
Hmm.
is focusing less on family and things like that. So there's definitely this worldly desire for possession and self-fulfillment over, family and community and duty and those things, and that noise and everything just plays right into that.
Yeah, and the kids that take social media seriously. I mean, so seriously that they'll commit suicide.
Yes. Well, they build their self-worth on that
Yeah.
rather than giving their self-worth to God, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like for our when we growing up, this was just nonsense. I mean, we would be out playing outside. Oh my gosh, we'd be doing something, playing kickball. I mean, we were just out and about, and we weren't inundated. We weren't overburdened with all this nonsense.
Yeah, we were just allowed to be kids,
Yeah,
and now I feel like they're almost robbed of that.
yeah, they are robbed in a lot of ways, especially when they get exploited through the internet. So it's sick. All right, we'll be right back after one of my commercials, not the platforms commercial. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a new sponsor for the show. Very exciting. Thank you very much. It's awesome. Prayers have been answered. Very good, very good. And this sponsor for limited time is going to match your gift. So if you give $100, they give $100, we got $200. So yes, please give to the show, give generously, and remember your gift, 100% of your gift goes to the show. There's no profiting going on here. Maybe one day in the future, but not anytime soon here. So yeah, whatever you give goes to the show for lighting, for sound, for effects. Yes, please. Thank you so much for your generous donation, and thank you to our sponsor who will match your gift. All right, next. Leadership and calling. What does servant leadership look like to you?
This is going to go back to, I guess, the mantra of the squadron that I was in. But, and it's kind of stuck with me. I mean, and there's a lot more to it, but first in, last out was kind of the leadership mantra there, right? Um,
I'm sorry, what did you do in the Air Force?
so
I know this is a side note, but
So I was power production, but most of my career we were civil engineering attachment to combat communication units.
okay.
So we played more than a lot of the Air Force.
Hmm.
Um, but
Okay. First in, last out.
yeah, so and I I had great we'll just say I had great examples of leadership, both good and bad, in my time in the
Hmm.
military, and so I tried to learn from that. But I think you can manage from the ivory tower, but you lead from the trenches.
Hmm.
If you're not willing or demonstrating that willingness to be in the trenches with those that you're, calling to lead, I think that you vastly limit your impact and your ability to really kind of get the most out of that team.
Hmm.
The other thing is be humble, be willing to wash the feet. At the end of the day, if your team or the people that you're leading or the people, your family, if they see, going back to that consistency, but they see you're willing to be that servant to those around you, those in need, them, and taking care of them. But even at work, right, it's like there's nothing. When I'm there to help lead this team, it don't matter if it's me picking up a broom. It don't matter, what the task may be. Like I don't. You got to maintain that humbleness, right? Everything is to the glory of God. God is sovereign, not me. And at the end of the day, I'm here in any way to help achieve the objective. And when they see that willingness to be in the trenches with them, work with them through the problems, be understanding of their own trials and tribulations, and provide wisdom and guidance where you can, the impact that you get from that type of leadership versus just barking orders and I'm over here, you do your thing.
Hmm.
I've seen mountains get moved
Hmm.
from that willingness that and that drive that kind of comes from that style of leadership versus, again, just being that distant person that gives orders.
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance to all of what you just said. The other side of the coin for me would be confidence in your command.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not only knowing your stuff, but exuding that confidence. Whereas some leaders I've seen, they may know their stuff, but they have this weak demeanor about themselves. They have this demeanor that says, you can kind of push me around, you can kind of roughshod over me. So
I get that.
I, I'm, I'm interested in seeing Jesus when he comes back. Okay, because we've seen the meek, mild Jesus, we've seen the serving Jesus, but we're not going to see that when he
Yeah,
returns.
we'll see
We're
that
going to get
flesh.
to see the commanding presence. We're going to get to see the warrior, and that kind of gives me the chills just thinking about it. But you know, somebody who's ready to take out evil and not really be wishy-washy about it, and because there is that danger if you can go too far either way. Like you said, you can be a real prick and be arrogant, or you can be real wishy-washy, and the troops are like, "Man, this guy's lame." So there is a happy medium that you're trying to find.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess I, yeah, I kind of took it from the action standpoint, but at the end of the day, yeah, you do need to be firm. You do need to be solid in what you stand for, and solid in that the objective is still the important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then not only that, like a big thing, especially with the teams that I lead, right? Like they need to, like, trust is such a huge piece.
Mm.
Our trust in the Lord, and the trust that we have in each other, right? You're not going to get anything out of somebody that doesn't trust you.
Mm-hmm.
And that trust, it's like an entire spectrum, right? They have to trust that you have their best interests in mind.
Mm-hmm.
They have to trust that you're competent, you know what you're doing, and they have to trust that, when things go awry, that you're going to, be supportive and stand for them in those down moments. And so, yeah, I mean that strength of leadership is still absolutely there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Next segment: legacy and eternal perspective. How has your understanding of eternity changed the way you live?
One of the statements that had the biggest impact for me in this area is that everyone that you talk to, everyone that you interact with every single day is an eternal being. And kind of wrapping your mind around that whatever the outcome for this person is, whether that's separation from God or joining God in his kingdom, whatever it is, that you're talking to an eternal being. You are an eternal being, you're talking to an eternal being, and so you start to really look at, you don't even necessarily know all of the impact that you're having on the people that are in your environment, right? And if you're not reflecting Christ in your walk and in your life, that impact on those around you, as much as, you would say to yourself, well, I don't want to impact this person's eternity. I don't want, my actions, my behaviors, my words to have been something that helps lead this person to, their ultimate demise, right?
Hmm.
So when you start to realize that everyone that you're interacting with and everyone that observes you each and every day is an eternal being that has an eternal outcome, right? You start to really drive home, or it starts to at least really drive home for me that, man, I want to do whatever I can to reflect Christ. Because at the end of the day, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be that reason. I don't want to be
Hmm.
that interaction that helps push somebody down a path that
Hmm.
that leads to an eternity in hell for them.
I brought this up in our Bible study last time, but it made me think of it again. In addition to seeing people as eternal beings, we don't really understand or take into account the words that we say. And I mentioned,
Yeah,
remember
so
that
true.
girl,
Yep.
20-year high school reunion, and this girl comes back to me to say, I really appreciate you saying that you didn't date girls that weren't Christian. And I'm like, who are you? I don't even know her name. I couldn't remember. But anyway, it was. But it's just one of those things that
Yeah.
you don't think about, but your words matter. And so, that kind of goes right along with taking into consideration that everybody's an eternal being. Take into consideration that what you think is just blabbing, it can be misconstrued, or maybe you just really need to hold your tongue and speak when it's beneficial for someone or it's truth. That's kind of what I'm learning a lot more is we just kind of run our mouths and we really don't know what we're saying. And I think we see a lot of that on social media, and we see a lot of that on young people. They just run their mouth. We see that in these senators and congressmen. There's a lot of them that run their mouths and they really don't know what they're saying. It's just,
And just not giving any regard to the impact of what's being
yeah.
said.
But just the littlest things that we don't think 2 cents about has an impact. And like you said, that's going to be concerning on Judgment Day. Like you said this and caused me to do this, and yikes, definitely.
So I had an experience, not quite as extreme, but a little bit. When I walked away from Christ, I refer to that time at the end of my teenage years and into my early 20s is it's kind of my dark ages because there was just a lot of things going on in my life that were not productive. But it was interesting because I ran into someone that had known me from I was really I tried to do well in school. I tried to
Mm-hmm.
be involved in all the different things, track and debate, everything. And
You played chess too, didn't you?
I mean, not like at school, but I did play chess. Um, anyway, but the crazy thing is that I'd separated from that school. We'd moved, and a whole lot of things had happened. But I ended up running into a person
Mm-hmm.
from that era in my life, and they obviously seen me in a very downtrodden state, and they let me know like, hey, like it's kind of sad to see you like this. Like I know we didn't talk and we didn't socialize or anything, but seeing, even with all, because there was like bullying and all kinds of things that were going on, but seeing, even with all the animosity and the things that you were dealing with, how driven you were and focused you were on, doing good in school and doing these
Hmm.
things, like it was motivating to me.
Hmm.
Like it encouraged me to try to do better and do those
Wow.
things too. And here they're telling me this, and I'm like,
Yeah,
I'm in a bad way.
that's funny.
And I was just, wow. And yeah, it's like I didn't even talk to this person. They just observed
Yeah,
from a distance, right?
God can use anybody, anytime, anywhere,
Amen.
in ways we know not. Yeah. Hmm. So let's see. Understanding eternity changed how you live. Understanding that individuals are eternal beings gives you a new focus on how to interact with them. Like it makes your interaction with them more meaningful, more
Purposeful.
purposeful. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Purposeful.
What would you say to someone who is searching for God right now?
The first thing I'll say, and this is, I look at this with absolute hindsight 2020 truth and realization even in my own life. Even when you think that you are as far as you could possibly be from God, God is there. God is there with you. God is there in your life. There are things that especially start that walk and really get to know and have a relationship with God that kind of they'll be revealed to you that oh wow, oh that He was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you start to have those epiphanies and those moments. So I would say the first thing I would say is that God is with you right now, whether you think that you're far away or you haven't found Him or whatever your state of thought is. God is with you. The invitation to get to know Him is there. Ultimately, the most important thing with that is getting into the Word. That's just like we were talking about earlier. The Word will speak to you wherever you're at. Like any other relationship, you're not going to get to know someone and you're not going to grow in a relationship with someone unless you spend time with them. So you got to spend some time in the Word. You got to spend time, whether it's devotion or Bible study or a meeting with your church family. no relationship grows that doesn't have time invested. And so if you really want to get to know God, be willing to actually give God some of that time and grow that relationship like you would any other relationship in your life. So if you're searching for God, the Word, that revelation, that truth, there's nothing that is going to be greater than that. But all of those other things in terms of spending time even with God through community, breaking bread, fellowship, all of those things really help build that understanding. And even for myself, there's always that personal relationship and that personal journey. But for me, it really started to gain merit and strength as I became involved, right? When you see the impact that a Christ-like life can have in the lives of others and just be have the blessing of bearing witness to that.
Hmm.
It can fill you, it can energize you, it can reveal a truth that has eluded you previously or just wasn't as obvious.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that's biblical. Take care of the orphans and the widows and be that servant as Christ was.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, bonus question. I get to pick one
Okay.
that you didn't prepare for. What has following Christ cost you?
Hmm, that's a good one. That's a good one. I don't know that, and when I look at it, like there's definitely maybe what some would argue a cost, right? In terms of not being able to have as much time to serve myself, not being able to be so lackadaisical about the choices that I make. Some would look at that as a cost. I guess hindsight, kind of where I'm at with my relationship with God, I don't really look at it as a cost anymore. I look at it as kind of an opportunity. But I know that the perspective of some would be that I don't, if somebody was looking at my life, they would say, you're not really doing anything for yourself. You're not really
Mm-hmm.
enjoying yourself. You're not really. And so, and to that, I would reply, my enjoyment is different now. My purpose is different now. The enjoyment I get, whether it's just even running the coffee bar at church and just bring, a smile to someone's face or being an encouraging reason for them to meet with their church family that day and actually come into church. Those purpose things drive me more than the cost of sleeping in, the cost of
Yeah.
just doing whatever I see fit to do. So,
So, like for a lot of us, the cost isn't really a big deal. There's really not a lot of costs. But I've talked about in the podcast the costs of the early Christians. You know,
yeah, that's
cost
true.
them. They cost them a lot.
Yes. Around the world, we still have that.
Sometimes when you speak truth, it might cost you your so-called friends, air quotes. So my brother shared that it cost him his family because as they were getting involved in the church, these hypocrites called them out, and so bad apples in the church turned his children away from the church. So that was a that was a and a lot of people will use that excuse. I don't want to be a Christian because they're fake.
This is true.
So
I'm dealing this right now with one of my children.
so there's that, and sometimes people pay a cost for speaking the truth. Sometimes they pay a cost for associating with someone that, let's say, this crowd doesn't want to associate with, or they're shunning. I mean, just go on social media and say something about Jesus and how he loves you, or, well, I won't get political, but there can be a cost for following Christ, and
Absolutely.
we are blessed to not have to have faced such dire straits where they are in North Africa. You know, the Christians are being
Absolutely.
persecuted and
Oh
being
goodness,
murdered,
yes.
and
Yeah.
so there can be a cost, and of course, the cost itself can be different. But we're blessed to live in a country where we don't have anything like that right now.
Amen. Amen. And hopefully it doesn't. A lot of people would argue where it's heading, but
Mm-hmm.
hopefully that freedom and I don't know. It is crazy though when you think about the cost from that perspective, and just how much, like, Christianity, right, and the number of believers, it grows far more rapidly in the places where that hope that comes with knowing Christ is needed.
I thought you were going to say it grows more rapidly under persecution than it does.
But that's where that hope of Christ is.
Yeah, I mean,
that persecution, when you're dealing
yeah,
with the life or death, or you're dealing with
mm-hmm.
just that abysmal suffering day in and day out, you need that hope
Mm-hmm.
more than anything. I think a part of it's a double-edged sword here, because it's an absolute blessing to have that freedom and not fear death for your belief. But in the same regard, like, soft comfort, I think that when you talk about, like, lukewarm Christians or people that are just Christians in name only, that comfort of not really, maybe it's just not, they need the hope, but maybe it's just not quite so apparent with that life or death daily environment that they need the hope. That they stray, right?
Yeah, they're ride-along Christians. As soon as it gets a little bumpy, they're going to be hitting the road. But, there is another thing that I just thought of where it might be costing you friction with your children because you're focused on Christ, and part of being focused on Christ is ministering to them, and they are pushing back against it. So rather than, you could be the dad that says, yeah, this is cool, man, social media, yeah, right, look at my profile, son.
Let's just be friends.
Right. So there is a cost in that sense.
Yeah.
Because it's frustrating, and it's weighty. It weighs you down. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, my prayer is that it doesn't get to the point of no communication. That would be hard, for sure.
Right. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show and making yourself available and
Absolutely.
giving me a piece of your time. That's really, especially since you're so busy all the time, I appreciate that very much. Thank you. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another successful interview in the can. So in closing, I'll say this as you listen to Christian Symphonic Metal, Rise Up, Lift Your Hands by VJ Galaxy at pixabay.com. Remember, at the end of the day, it's not about titles or positions or appearances. It's about whether or not you truly know Jesus. Because one day we'll all be standing before him. What else is going to matter in that moment? Seriously, what else is going to matter? Your social standing? Your wealth? You need to know Jesus. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with me and hanging out with one of my brothers. Don't forget to subscribe, to like. Tell me what's going on with you. Tell your family, friends, neighbors, enemies about the show. Get them to subscribe. And until next time, stay safe. This program is the intellectual property of the Greg Shrevely Show. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved. Unauthorized use, reproduction, or distribution without written permission is prohibited.